Hi, true crime fans. It's me, Patty Lee at the True Crime Grapevine. So I just recorded our episode 19, which should be up tomorrow on July 5th. But and you may be hearing some fireworks because it is both my nation and my birthday, July 4th. And so let's raise a glass, keeping our nation, and also another lovely birthday of the True Crime Grapevine host, me, Patty Lee, your dyslexic detective. Okay, so if you know anything about my podcast, for each case, I give a little pairing with a wine. So I already did 8 cases, so I'm a bit toasted, as we said, as we would say from the 80s. If you're from the 80s, I guess you know if you know. All right. So I said during the episode 19 when I was talking about Kaitlin Armstrong that I wish I had like Nor Jasmine a I wish she would make me. I don't know if I could pay her. Nor, hey, big fan here. I wish I could have like a little tin hat because I have some theories about the Caitlin case. Of course. Okay, now here's the deal. My theories are based, I think, I would say, in evidence. And so just follow me down the primrose path here of my evidence. So, what we know about what happened. I went back to the May 24th episode of the Mercury News online that has a timeline for the Caitlin Armstrong, Mo Wilson, Colin Strickland, um, you know, love triangle case. And when I talk about it in my podcast, I always pair it with the you know, menage a trois because we call it a love triangle case. But let's just look at the facts and then talk about what the theories that explain those facts might be and talk about the likelihood of those things. Okay, so here's what we know. If you follow everything that's in the affidavit and everything that the Mercury News reported, what we know is that Caitlin Armstrong's car was seen in the vicinity of the block of where Mo was staying. So, if you remember, Mo was visiting for a ride and staying with a friend. So, it's not like she lived there. So, I'm assuming that personally, as a 50-something-year-old married lady who's been around the block a few times, like maybe let's just say I was engaged twice before I actually was engaged to be married and got married for 25 years. Let's just say I get the idea of so you're in a long-term relationship with somebody and you get that they're not really being monogamous, maybe. And so you start doing some detective work on your own. And maybe, see, so I didn't have cell phones back when I was dating before I got married. But if I did, even with my limited ability to use technology, I would probably figure out how to do the Find My iPhone app or any other app that would track my man. And I'm just saying, if you're living with somebody and you're sharing bills and you're swapping spit and other DNA, yeah, you're probably thinking, like, I have some right to find out where he is. And I would say, yeah, you do. So, I mean, not that you own other people because you never do, even when you're married, but I'm just saying, would I understand when somebody would be like, look, I'm going to use that Find My iPhone app or what other app to see, especially when he's acting odd, especially when his phone is off and he's been acting strange. Okay, so maybe I use my app and it has a little blue dot and I follow that blue dot and I circle the block. And then maybe I see where the dot is and I kind of stop at that place, but I keep going. So the affidavit and the timeline in the Mercury News only say that Caitlin's car was seen going around the block and that it stopped like near the house. It does not say it parked. It does not say she got out. Okay. The other thing that was in the Mercury News and was reported at first, and then nobody talks about it anymore, is that I think it was the owner of the place or either the other resident, somebody who was in the garage portion underneath where the apartment was, because there was 2 units there. He said between 8:45, which is after everybody was seen around the house, and 9:30, so sometime in that time frame, so he wasn't exactly sure, he saw somebody go down the back stairs. So the unit was upstairs above the second unit where Mo's friend was staying and where Mo was staying with was upstairs. He saw somebody run down the stairs and then he saw a bike go southbound down the alley. All right. So follow this logic. That person saw a actual person and the bike was really missing. We know this. And the bike was found like it was either 60 or 600 yards, but it was found away from the house and thrown to the side. Okay. So we have a situation where somebody is visiting in town, somebody and somebody finds this person inside this apartment and nobody else is there and she is unalived by 5 shots. And we know that somebody was seen fleeing the building at some time around, which would match the murder time, taking the bike, and we know the bike was taken. Okay, so who could have taken the bike? We have 2 known and at least 1 unknown, if not 2 unknown people. And let me tell you what my thought process is. Okay, the 2 known ones, Kaitlin. So Kaitlin was seen circling the block and then stopping in front of the house right around the time near when Colin dropped off Mo. So if she's following Colin's little blue dot on some app, that makes sense, right? But the affidavit, and neither the affidavit nor the Mercury News reported that she got out or that her car was parked for 15-20 minutes, right? Just that she drove by. We know that her boyfriend was there, so maybe she was tracking him, right? So if she drove by, everybody on the internet was talking about, oh, well, she just got in because Mo keyed in her key and went upstairs. Now, it was reported that she had locked the door when she left and that she had keyed in. We don't know if that key was an automatic lock thing. And I personally had a tutor for my son who used one of those key things, and after 30 seconds, it locked. And that was the whole thing. It was a safety feature of that lock. So, would not somebody who had an apartment complex and was renting to people have that safety feature? I don't know. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me that how would she know to lock the code? It doesn't matter, but it was not reported either way, which was weird. It was reported that at 5:55 when she left, it was locked. And it doesn't, and it reports when she came back, but it doesn't say it locked. So did she have to do something to lock? That is unreported. And everybody on the interwebs, I am sorry, but I have been under our True Crime Grapevine Twitter account. There were certain accounts going like, why would you even question? Of course she just walked in and killed her. Okay, listen. If you're going to follow true crime, we are not witch hunters. We are not, let's find the easiest suspect and the simplest explanation and then hang them, convict them, like judge them, convict them, hang them. That is bullshit. And that is why the United States, or it typically has been better because we have this procedure where you have to have credible evidence and then you have to have a court of law. So we are not, and we as true crime interest people are not law enforcement as much as we want to. And I know there are people that talk to people and interview people and go try to talk. Listen, I'm very interested in true crime and I have lots of ideas and theories, but I will tell you is I'm not going to go getting involved in law enforcement because that is a problem for law enforcement in my opinion. So we only know what law enforcement tells us. And and I assume that they hold things back, right? We know they do. So I assume that law enforcement knows way more than we know, right? Don't you? I mean, I hope. Anyways, God, happy 4th of July. Can you guys hear that? I can hear fireworks going off everywhere. So the one scenario, the facts that we have to work with are, we know Kaitlin drove by, we know she pulled like she at least stopped in front of the house, kept going. That's not clear. Okay, there's no report of her getting out of the car or her being seen on this stuff, just her car. All right. And I don't know if it was a car that looked like hers or actually they saw the license plate, but let's assume, I hope they saw the license plate if they're going to go ahead and put her in an affidavit to say she committed this crime. But so even if she went inside, how did she know nobody else was inside? That wasn't Mo's residence. She wasn't like living there. So how did she know that nobody else was inside? She just went in with a gun. Was she going to kill everybody there? She went upstairs into an apartment that she had never been with this weapon and just was lucky that nobody else was there. And then how do we explain the person that ran downstairs, took the bike, so her car would have had to been sitting there. And why would she take the bike and then come back? Wouldn't we see her circle? That doesn't make any sense to me. I can't logically figure out how Kaitlin is both the killer and the bike person who stole the bike. So are we saying that there just happened to be a bike theft after Mo was murdered? And those are two separate incidents? Because I can't make sense in the timeline of how Kaitlin just was lucky enough that the door was unlocked. Like what? She's circling, she sees Colin leave, she goes in, somehow is just knows that nobody else is there. I don't know how she knows nobody else is there at this apartment. Is lucky enough that Mo's alone, somehow gets her into the bathroom, does the deed, and then steals her bike or leaves. But why is that not mentioned on any of the surveillance? And she would have had to park her car. This is like at least 15 minutes to do all this, right? Go inside, fight, kill, leave. Okay. So that doesn't make sense. Now, let's take suspect number 2, Adu. So here's what we know about Colin Strickland. So Colin was with Mo all day. So guess what? Do you think Mo told Colin that nobody was home? Do you think maybe she said, "Hey, nobody's here. Would you like to come up for a drink?" Or, who knows what, right? But do you think Mo told Colin no one was at home? That she had the place to herself? That is much more likely because he spent the day with her, right? And he supposedly dropped her off on her motorcycle. And he told the cops when he did this. Now, if they saw Kaitlin drive by, we haven't heard, did they see exactly when he pulled up, dropped her off, and left? That's something I would like to know because let's say you're on a motorcycle, you go inside, you have a fight with somebody, you end up unaliving them, you need to get out of there. If you're on a motorbike, do you like drive a little bit away, circle back, come back, do something to take care of a messy problem? I don't know. But a motorcycle is easier to figure out how you would like drive away, circle back, get in, take a bike back to where your motorcycle was that you left about what, 60 yards away, 600 yards away, if you're a professional bicycler. And then you go home because Colin's whole timeline about when Kaitlin came home is what Colin says. Colin says, "Oh, and then she got home at this time." Again, law enforcement has their phones. So and law enforcement should have other surveillance along the way to see where both he and she were. Someone took that bike. Okay, third. So how this all came about as to how the authorities knew it was Kaitlin was an anonymous tip from a female caller. Now, after Mo was murdered and this all was coming out, the cycling community dumped basically Colin and said he's a douchebag and they didn't have anything positive to say about him. Now, I would assume that's because he's a douchebag. I don't know. I'm just saying what they're saying. It's weird that the community didn't gather around him and be like, "Hey, he was always a great guy," and maybe he just because he and Mo had something doesn't mean that his girlfriend should blah 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 blah, right? But that's not what happened. Nobody seems to like Colin. Colin also fled after Kaitlin fled, saying he was afraid of Kaitlin, but Kaitlin fled. So why would he flee? I mean, she's gone. But he's like, oh, she could come back and get me. Okay, but you lived with her 2 days before the police ever showed up at your house and figured out who you guys were to Mo. So you weren't afraid of her then. So here's the deal with Colin and this caller. So, did Colin have other girlfriends besides Mo and besides Kaitlin? Obviously, he wasn't a monogamous dude, right? Because we know he's got Kaitlin, he's got Mo. And the one text that was in the affidavit that we know of was something about Mo asking Colin, hey, like, it seemed like they were at an event that Kaitlin was also attending, and Kaitlin didn't seem to know who Mo was. And she was like, hey, are we like, it seems like she thinks she's with you and she doesn't know who I am. So that's what that came across to me. And maybe I'm wrong. And if I'm wrong, please put it in the comments because I am the dyslexic detective and maybe I missed I could have missed the meaning of something. But so as far as I know right now, so AFOC RN, as far as we know right now, it seems as if this situation was Kaitlin was unaware. Mo thought he had broken up with Kaitlin, or at least they weren't together. And yet there was this event, and it seemed like Kaitlin was his date, and Mo was like, dude, what? So in this scenario, could there be a third girlfriend? So either a girlfriend who Colin is aware of and worked together with, and she was the one who called in the tip. Oh, by the way, so he's taken care of Mo, and now he takes care of Kaitlin by having this girl call in with her anonymous tip and say, "Oh, Kaitlin, there's a gun in the house. Like Kaitlin has a gun, and she was threatening Mo, and she said I will kill her." Which, come on, really, that seems like it's tied up with a bow. How is it really ever that easy? Really? Cops out there, I want your opinion. Is it ever really that easy? I guess it is sometimes. Like if someone's mad, but usually those people go, yeah, I killed him. But I don't know. It seems weird that it was an anonymous tip, that it was a female anonymous tip, and then it was like, hey, this is all easily solved. I know that she found out about the affair. I know that she said, I will kill her. I know that he gave her a gun. And if so, fact so, there you go. Wow. That's kind of amazing and easy to solve, right? There you go. Cops, open and shut. And which is what the affidavit is written on. The affidavit also says that the gun found in the house is similar. Now, any of my true crime fans know, what do ballistics say? They say a ballistic match. No, 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 no. That's not what the affidavit said. It said significantly similar, which means it wasn't a ballistic match. Now, was that because the shots were to the skull and the shells were too damaged to make a good ballistic match? I don't know. But what I do know is it was an anonymous tip. It was a female caller. And if Caitlin was so smart that she got out of the country so fast, she wasn't smart enough to get rid of the gun. She just took it home and was like, "Hey, I'll just put it under my pillow. Nobody'll find it." Really? Really? You don't get rid of the weapon? So you take the bike to get to wherever, somehow circle back to your car, and then take the weapon home and put it right back in your home for the cops to find 2 days later. In 2 days, you don't figure out, maybe I better get rid of that fucking gun. Doesn't that seem too easy? To me, it seems too easy. Does that seem too easy to you? I mean, I guess people, again, if she's that stupid, then how was she smart enough to go, oh my God? See, so I always imagined she went to, after those 2 days, when they went to the house and they're looking through their house and they're talking to her, they're like, this is what we know, blah, 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 blah. And they said she was very quiet and she just nodded. And then she said, am I free to go? And they were like, yeah. And she left. How do we know she wasn't sitting there going, oh my God, I'm being set up. I'm being set up and I have to get the F out of here. That effer, he didn't just cheat on me. He's gonna nail me for a murder. I mean, who knows who? So, okay. So that would be like a third party somehow involved. Either Colin did it or the third party girlfriend, like that we don't even know about, did it and then made the call in to frame Kaitlin so that Caitlin's gone, Mo's gone. Oh, open way for the third girl, right? All right. So Caitlin, I just don't see how we explain the bike being gone with Caitlin's car being there because we don't say she left and came back and the car wasn't parked. I don't see how that works, but maybe it does, and we just don't know because law enforcement is keeping something back. But we have Caitlin doing it. The second scenario I think is reasonable is that Colin did it because we don't know exactly when Mo was killed. You can't know that within minutes, right? So we don't know if he left on his bike. Caitlin was circling the block looking for him. He circled back because the guy said it was between 8:45 and 9:30 when he saw this person take off. So what if he circled back, came in, surprised Mo because he knew she was alone, was like, hey baby, let's go take a shower. And for whatever reason, like she was being problematic to him. Maybe she said, I'm going to tell Caitlin. Caitlin's supposedly had made texted her like stay away from my man, and maybe she was like, fuck that, I'm gonna, your man, he's my man, like I don't think so. And I want this to bring this to a head, maybe, who knows, but it makes more sense that he could have circled back when he left his bike somewhere, circled back as soon as Caitlin was going around the block, whatever, she drives off, he goes in, does the deed, takes off on her bike, goes back to his bike, gets home. I don't know. That's my second scenario. My third scenario, obviously, is there's a third person that we don't know who's involved. So this is then not just a menage a trois, but a menage a trois, or maybe sink, sank. I don't know how many people he's got involved in this. Either somebody who he roped into it, or maybe it could be somebody that he was involved with that just figured out, like, I'll get rid of the competition. Oh, like one of those crazy people. I did it for you, Colin. What if there's like a third really crazy girl involved who doesn't like Caitlin and also then didn't like Mo and thought, F all of this, like who was stalking him? Okay. Again, unlikely. I like Colin for it the most. That makes the most sense to me, by the way, because he had a motorcycle and then the biking thing and then the weird anonymous tip. I could see Colin arranging all that. And that is just my opinion. It is not um, anything. This is just me trying to think of how do we explain two people there in this love triangle, unless it's a love square, and um, the bike being stolen. It has to be connected, in my opinion. Okay, so my fourth theory, and this actually could be the most realistic, which is very sad. Somebody knew the owner wasn't going to be home because the owner was out and about, and they knew who lived at that house. And they're like, oh, she's not there. We're going to go steal shit. They go up the back, they go into steal shit. Mo is in the bathroom because she just went on this date. She's getting ready, like she took a shower because she was swimming and she's gross. I mean, not that she's gross, sorry. But when you swim, you have like chlorine in your hair and stuff. And she's 25. She's a young girl. She knows get that stuff out of my hair. Or maybe she just want to clean off. Takes a shower. She's in the bathroom and she is surprised by a burglar intruder. And the intruder just loses their mind. They didn't expect anybody there. Boom, 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 boom. Take care of that in the bathroom, freak out. They're like, okay, I'm stealing this bike. I'm getting out of here. That probably is very reasonable and logical. And unfortunately, wouldn't that be sad? That's the most likely. Now that doesn't explain the call. The call about Kaitlin seems to indicate it was a female caller who was anonymous. I don't like it. I don't. Unless the person who was burglarizing the house had a girlfriend and was like, had heard some of the story and added to it. I don't know. Again, so logically, we only know what the law enforcement has let us know, right? I mean, and yes, we know Caitlin ran, blah, blah, blah. I'm gonna say that if you thought you were being framed for something, you might run and you might ask your sister for help because you know you weren't really guilty. And then you might be stupid enough to just go try to do yoga, which I still think that is the dumbest thing ever. So if this mastermind somehow did this whole thing and got away with it and then acted that way, that doesn't make sense either. So what do you think? Do you think that Caitlin was just stalking her live-in boyfriend? And if she really wanted to screw around with him, she was in charge of his finances, and maybe she would just, I don't know, embezzle all the money if she was going to commit a crime. Why kill somebody when you can take the guy all his money and see how much the girl liked him? I mean, there are so many ways to get back at somebody when you're in charge of their finances. Really, your first thing is to barge into an apartment where you don't know who's home. And somehow, I don't know how her car is driving by and yet she's stealing a bike. That that is what really screws up this whole thing. The car, the owner seeing the bike and not hearing the shots, nobody hearing the shots. I don't know, man. That is the problem. How do we make all those pieces fit? Who is the person who could have gotten in there, who would have known nobody else was home, who knew Mo was there and knew nobody else was there? Or was it somebody who thought nobody was there and wanted to steal things and Mo surprised them and they reacted poorly? Or that doesn't explain, though, then who would then make that anonymous call about Caitlin? To me, the only thing that explains all of it is Colin. Colin circling back. That's the only thing that makes sense to me is Colin getting away on the bicycle after that is because Colin would know somebody maybe who would be willing then to make that phone call about Caitlin. Because he acted strange too. I don't know. What do you guys think? I think Caitlin I just want to hear her story, and I'm glad. I am so glad she was taken alive, and maybe she'll just say, "Yeah, this is what happened." I would love to hear the explanation, especially if she did it. I want to know, how were you in the car driving by, and who took the bike? Like, was that a weird, like, was there a burglary after the fact of the murder? Like, wouldn't that be crazy if somebody stole the bike and didn't even know a person had been unalived in the house? No. What do you think? This case, it has got me just imagining all kinds of things. My gut tells me it's Colin Strickland is involved. Although, the authorities think it's Kaitlin, but are the authorities just going on that anonymous tipster? And was it an anonymous tipster, or was it a tipster that they're telling us is anonymous? And that's the crux of all of this, right? We're not law enforcement. They're not telling us. I want to know, did her car park? Everybody, at all the evidence that I can find says she drove by, maybe stopped in front of the house, like slowed down. Yeah, if you're following that little blue dot, you will slow down and look at where the blue dot is and like go, hey, is he in there? And look around for his car or his vehicle. That doesn't mean if they didn't see her get out, if they didn't say the car parked for 20 minutes, I don't know. Unaliving takes some time. And we don't know what the autopsy said. We don't know how hard Mo felt. We don't know if she was surprised. We don't know if there was an altercation in the bathroom. But the fact that the person who had a connection to that uh, residence and saw somebody coming from upstairs in the back and then took the bike southbound, and then I would want to know, was the southbound alley, was that in the direction of where Colin and Kaitlin Armstrong lived? Would that have been towards their house? I want to know. There's too much that we don't know, but there's enough that we don't know that I think you can't just say Kaitlin did it. And that is why, along with the ballistics being only significant, not a ballistic match, I think that is why Kaitlin now, I don't know if her bond is cash, but I do know her bond is high. I mean, it's like 2.5 million, but she has bond. And they said she'd have to like be, I believe, ankle monitored and blah, blah, blah. But they're giving her bond, which tells me they're not quite sure. So I would love to know what you guys think. Let me know. Um, talk about it in the comments. Anyways, that's all I have to say. Episode 19 will be up in its like little episode parts. But otherwise, goodbye, true crime fans. I hope your 4th of July was great, and I will see you next week on a True Crime Grapevine. Stay safe, be smart. Uh, don't go into the woods alone. Always take a witness slash buddy wherever you go, and stay safe. All right. Love you guys. Bye.